creatives, community, and kind folks out there. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ. Thank you very much for joining me on this Monster Monday. I know today here in the States it is a holiday, but after being not mentioning it last week and being woken up by one of my forthright cats, we are here today, here on this Monster Monday. Now, for those who don't know, this show is, as it states below, simulcast on three media networks. Twitch, YouTube, and Discord, so you may participate there live. And if you catch this later, of course, you can drop a comment below in the media of your choice, as well as the fact that on this channel, we take a subject and we take it and we deep dive into it all week long. So we have Monster Monday, Discord Tuesday, World Building Wednesday, and so forth. And if you notice in the thumbnail, we are going to talk about alchemy. Yeah, alchemy. Now, we will touch a little bit, bump up alongside things like herbalism and the apothecaries and other ritualized magic, but we're going to talk about alchemy. Now, for those who don't know, of course, you can, if you join our Discord server, there are lots of links popped in there, artwork, videos, things like that, which you cannot pop into Twitch or YouTube. Now, alchemy. The cool thing about alchemy, and mind you, remember we're talking about Monster Monday. The best part of alchemy, though, in general, is I know it seems to devolve into things that explode, are acidic or highly flammable. But alchemy is far more than that, because with alchemy, much like talking about, say, the argument between including or not including tieflings or dragonborn or something in your world, once you accept that there is alchemy, then it opens up a greater world. There's an economy established around alchemy. There are numerous story seeds about alchemy. There's a resource management and time and skill and labs and all kinds of things. And of course, this bleeds into political manifestations and all kinds of other economies related to it. That's why I love alchemy. And let's be honest, if you're an old grognard like I am, you'll remember that the majority of the original Monster Manual, i.e. for saving space and the fact that a lot of the creatures were basically created from toys that Gary Gygax and friends had imported to them, that one of the simplest origins for a lot of the monsters in there was either, and I know you're already thinking about this, right? It was either a curse or it was some experimentation by some kind of wizard or alchemist that created the thing, right? All of the origins for the half monsters, many of the origins for the weird, strange creatures that really shouldn't exist in the first place. Most of the Gygaxian creatures. Oh, I'm looking at you, gelatinous cube, and possibly mimic and owlbear, and et cetera, so on and so forth. Now, over the time, you had your monster manuals and two and theme folios and a ton of articles in Dragon Magazine that were repurposed to give some of these creatures an actual background. But in the beginning, it was always like, oh, why does this thing exist? I don't know. It was an experiment that went wrong. So the first part of alchemy with our monsters, of course, experimentation. And of course, we started joking about the fact that, the goblinsies being the ones who are they are like the Dungeons and Dragons version of lab rats and rabbits and stuff out there in the wild and everything. But part of alchemy is also it's that middle ground between flowing from the definition of magic, which is something that we don't understand and has results that maybe we aren't quite prepared for, moving into the realm of science, where despite the fact that something extraordinary might be created from it, if we repeat the same processes over and over again, we can get the same results. Hey, Vince. So an example would be, sure, maybe the person who created, yeah, like Rickard said, don't forget about Twitch, guys. Yeah, I'm like at 2.8, and I need to have 3 consistent watchers over Twitch to be an affiliate. It's weird, but whatever. Okay, so alchemy. Where do we start from alchemy? The first part of alchemy is let's start from the beginning. So it's really, of course, it's really cool to have a player character that runs around with a lot of vials and bottles and things like that. But the first part is, where do we get the materials from? Where does it come from? Does it come from plant life and minerals? Thanks, guys. Does it come from caves or deep in the ocean? Is it a byproduct of some kind of material left over by a monster or something? Is it is the material only processed in a certain season or region or elevation or temperature, right? Lots of things, lots of minerals are pulled from the earth, and the results of those things are we use for current day. I bring to you oil and gasoline. Those are things that are created by the over time, that we then discover later on in the history of the earth, and we're able to pull that forth. So there are certain circumstances where certain particular elements, you guys, miniature giant space hamsters. There's so many things when it comes to I think that we kind of we put to the wayside, and I think kind of the fun would be, like I talked about, resource management is the idea that you gather together the materials to get the thing that you want, right? So where is it? Is it common? Is it rare? Is the material only in a specific location? Are there a unique set of factors in order to bring about what you're looking for? Meaning, like extreme heat or cold, pressure, electricity. How do you process the material itself? Do you bring it back and grind it up in a pestle and mortar, or does it need to be dried? Does it need to be pressed or aged or combined with some other elements? Meaning, 2 separate things, no big deal, put them together, and then you create what it is you're looking for. So not only do you need to find what you're looking for, the specific elements, compounds, molecular structures, and all that kind of stuff, but bringing them together to come about a specific result. And what happens when you don't perform the recipe? I don't know what alchemical concoction recipes are called. I'm sure there is a specific thing, but yeah. Yeah, Vince says, since in my first idea for deck building RPG was playing alchemists, and the cards would be ingredients for their abilities, but then turned it into shamans and spirit cards, which is fun. But I like the idea of ingredients. Vince says, I think it depends on how much you want alchemy to be used. In D&D, the alchemist can just use his abilities and does not need to find special ingredients. Well, yeah, exactly, because that's essentially what it's built around, right? Player character, we hand wave, the search for the materials. You just happen to have it. Heck, we even hand wave the idea of having a lab and the materials to create the stuff. But yep. Deadman says the Elder Scrolls games have alchemy in them, and Rick responds with, the problem with alchemy is that you have the game mechanics and the fantasy of it. I do agree with that. and this depends on how cinematic versus gritty or realistic you want to get, right? Like, do um much like Alchemy is like the urban version of a survivalist game, right? Where in a post-apocalyptic survivalist game, like a Dark Sun or something, you want to track your resources, like your food and your water and your supplies, and your equipment may break, and your travel time and such. And Alchemy is similar to that fact, where do I have all the ingredients? Do I have enough of the ingredients? Where can I get them? Can I purchase them? Do I need to find them? Do I need to send agents out to collect the things for me? Do I need maps to find the locations? What external element do I need to use with my alchemical processes to get it done? And during I'll say the fantastical Victorian age of gaming brings a lot of alchemy. I bring to you Dr. Frankenstein and Frankenstein's protean monster, the Invisible Man, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. There were a lot of stories centered around this idea of moving, combining the fantastical with the science of discovery. I understand that that's not technically the air quote fantasy Dungeons and Dragons, but it has a lot to do with it, considering that Dungeons and Dragons includes clockwork monsters and maybe even steam power. So there's a lot to do with that. Rickard says you can capture the fantasy of having potions and using them. Just have them have abilities that is in the potions and whatnot. But to capture the potion making side and herbalistic side, and turns it into problems. Meaning, like, if I could expound on that. So, for example, you could very easily reskin. You could probably reskin every character class if you wanted to turn your world into an alchemical styled setting. Hey, I have a barbarian. Well, my barbarian's not, a loincloth wearing individual. Maybe they drink a potion, or they've drank a potion that has transformed their body with some refer to as internal alchemy, that makes them stronger, faster, wilder, or something like that. Or my fighter isn't just skilled, but I drink a concoction that gives me second wind, and things like that, where you are permanently changed by having consumed the concoction. Druids would fit into this as well. The I've gone from second level to third level druid, not because I've gained any special skills or something, but I've returned to the circle, and I've drunk the special sap that was mixed with, I don't know, special herbs and ground seeds or something like that during the equinox or what have you. Now, Vince says there are example berries that heal you similarly to good berries, but they also have a huge chance to make you addicted. Being addicted to berry tea was actually very common. And what is it? Brandon Sanderson's Rules of Magic. It's not the capabilities they have, but the limitations that make them interesting. And this is where you can pull from, the idea of like the chaos mage, if you want to go that, if you're talking about 5th edition, where improperly creating your concoctions can have strange or humorous or even lethal side effects of taking the particular potion or elixir or what have you. I mean, addictions have a lot to do with this. Transformations, illnesses, sicknesses, woundings, mental afflictions as well. So yeah, a player character could be used to taking a particular concoction that makes them tougher, stronger, faster. But what's the drawback from that? Is it extreme exhaustion, weakness? Maybe their body fades away, some kind of transformation, bleeding out of the eyes and ears, or any number of other things, right? You've mixed the wrong thing, and now you've turned into a frog. Yep. Deadman brings up Arcanum of Steamworks and Magic Obscura, another PC game, also had Alchemy. And it, it, there are a number of video games where you have to collect certain supplies to bring them together to create a certain thing. Like I need to collect 3 gold and 6 sheep and or something. Alchemy could be similarly done, especially with PCs who are like, we've killed the monster, the dragon or something. Can I keep its blood or organs or something? Lots of PCs have done that, and what a great way to give PCs access to magic based on the things that they are assembling around them. If they go into the dark woods and acquire the sap from the black tree with the pale white leaves, maybe this gives them some kind of access to necrotic spells. Or if they go out into the ocean and they're able to get the poison from some kind of sea serpent or something, maybe that gives them access to aquatic abilities or something, poisonous abilities or breathing water or something, right? Vince says, I think in Witcher you had a certain toxicity level you get when drinking a potion, so it limits how many potions you can stack on yourself. Ooh, that's a great one right there. Yeah, the toxicity levels. Heck, we've got that today. Drink too many Monster energy drinks or something, and your heart explodes. Oh yeah, sorry about the 50. Yeah, it passed by me. It says in the dark eye, alchemy is super specific. It can have super weird ingredients like snow falling on a specific day in the year, or dragon tears or stuff like that. There are huge lists of gems and herbs and what they do on their own and what you can do with it. If you want your players to really, or they're really heavy into exploration, and I don't mean exploration like well, I do mean exploration, like going out into the unknown, but I mean exploring your world, discovering these recipe lists of combining certain things together. You could come up with some pretty interesting things. And remember, um, let's say, for example, you have 5 ingredients and then 5 methods to modify those ingredients, through heat, boiling, electricity, cold, or something like that. You start doing 5 times 5 times 5, right? Because now you take each of those ingredients, and then each of those specific ingredients can combine together. And then if you combine 2 specific ingredients and apply a specific stimuli to those ingredients, you can come up with a huge laundry list, as well as taking our real world, elements, compounds, molecular structures, and things. Although in a fantasy world, you don't need to follow the periodic table in a fantasy world, but you could absolutely pull from it, right? Yeah. Alex says 5 times 5 times 5 is 625. You do the math, but that gives you 625 possible combinations of a thing, right? So you could have like 5 specific things that player characters can go discover, and then 5 different combinations, and then 5 different ways to modify them, right? Right. So there's your spell list. Now, um, Ricker says the problem being how you make it fun for a whole group to search for ingredients, as well as how to make the crafting of the potions make it feel engaging. And that can be a problem, because when you have one player character, you're like, okay. When you've got like 5 and they're all doing the same thing, you might have to hand wave quite a bit, right? Because then you get into the problem of player characters basically turtling up. But you can make it pretty interesting, right? Because what the problem, and I'm air quoting that, the problem with alchemy is that alchemy automatically means that an encounter doesn't it behooves you not to have every encounter to be a combat encounter. Social encounters and exploration encounters would absolutely positively dominate a world where alchemy is the primary ability to get people to do extraordinary things, right? It's not about fighting the bad person, but what recipes do they have? Do they have elements do you need? Do you want to, the old hag that lives out in the swamp might not be very useful to you to kill the old hag in the swamp, especially if the old hag in the swamp is selling particular concoctions. And I will say that despite the fact that Dungeons and Dragons um, defaults to potions and elixirs, that's not that's only one small part of alchemy, right? There are potions, elixirs, salves, oils, lotions, tinctures, um, draughts. There are lots of powders, solidified objects. I mean, you could claim that you could say crafting the oh my using clay, turning clay into pottery is basically alchemy, right? It's taking a material and then making an ingredient from it and turning what is basically a soft thing and baking it and turning it into something hard, right? Salts and using other kinds of hard materials as well. Making Not everything turns into a potion, making something into a gaseous form or a injectable form or a very concentrated pill-like form are also possibilities as well. I mean, instead of the classic healing potion, maybe it's something that you put into a leaf that you wrap around your wound, which could be considered, far more into the talking about injections and powders and pills is more apothecary like, whereas the herbalist might keep them more in their natural state, but basically the same things. Yep. Yeah, Alexi, what's that special ingredient? A centipede's tongue? That's the other funny thing. That's the other fun thing you could have with alchemy is like, you there's an ingredient and you start scratching your head like, how the hell am I supposed to get that ingredient? Like a centipede's tongue? What is it? Eye of Newt? And I'm thinking like, what the hell is a newt? And how am I going to get its eye? Or the tears of a fiend, or the dew collected from the dew collected from the golden ichor that drips from the gold dragon's tears as they cry once a year for the suffering of the people or whatever. Like when it comes to even collecting certain ingredients, you could be pretty weird. Thank you, Dead Man. Well, for those who aren't in the Discord, you might be able to find yourself a picture of a newt. And yeah, there's this old beady eye, which pretty much means that we're causing newts to suffer more than they need to, maybe. Um, yeah, record sort of talks about it's like about player characters, and it's like only one of those five happen to be an alchemist. Basically, like, yeah, maybe one of them is. Also, you could very easily, you don't need to play an alchemist player character. You like I said, you could play a wizard and just say, well, all my stuff is alchemical, right? When I cast my alarm spell or something, I pour my concoction around the campgrounds or something. Or clerical things are the same thing, using holy water and oils and wine and that kind of thing could very easily be related to an alchemical function in the world. Ricker says also alchemy has a problem that you essentially have one character that have their own subquests that they always want to do, and that really is a bit of an issue if as a group you don't come together, because like, for example, if you don't agree that the whole world basically runs on alchemy, then you do have the one player character that's always going off on their own, or it's always like, oh, it's going to take me 3 weeks to put this together, or the player character's like, we've got a time limit, we got to get out of here, and you always have the one player that's like, well, it's going to take me a couple hours to brew my formula, so we really can't run, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah, Vince says, you, oops, moved on me a little bit there. Yeah, Vince says, you could, for example, use the elements. So for example, chili would have fire element, and water lilies would have water element, and you have to mix fire and water to gain like a flaming liquid bomb, for example. It says, yeah, the rarer the ingredient, the better the bonus effects it would give, or some rare recipes only work when you have those things, or they have more possible elements you can use them for. Meaning, if I can expound upon that, like maybe you could delve beyond, say, like the classic four elements, um, or for example, instead of a simple earth element, maybe there's like subcategories like gemstones or iron or alloys. Also are can be considered alchemical, right? Or maybe alchemists are needed to complete other things. Like, you want to make that magic sword, well, you need to add certain ingredients to it, right? You want to make that magic armor, during the forging process you might need to, you can't steep it in regular water. Maybe that particular water must be mixed with the blood of your enemies or something sick like that. Right. Alex C says, material hunting sure as hell can be an adventure in and of itself. Yeah, it might not just be simply picking berries, but what if those berries only grow on the side of a mountain cliff, and there just happen to be griffins that live there, right? Like, you know, um, in a leveling system, maybe leveling up has zero to do with um, experience, and more to do with getting the things that you need, and that is like your improvement, right? Like when you climb the cliff to get the berries to I don't know, take the specific thing that happens to be inside of the nest of the griffin. That's when your capabilities are better, because you've done the thing, you've experienced the thing. Also, this brings to mind, since we are talking about Monster Monday, how many more of your adversaries can you combine with alchemy to turn them into NPCs in your gaming world, right? The Rakshasa, the Hags, the Nagas, the Sphinxes. I'm trying to think of some other mid-level enemies. Anyway, many of them, um, you could throw Medusa in there, or heck, Minotaurs, if you want to, drink some of the, Minotaur ladies' milks or something like that. The whole idea of the hag's milk, right? These individuals could become the movers and shakers of the world, and they can become far more valuable to the community than a simple threat in the outskirts that you have to kill. Yeah, and Minotaur milk. You heard me. Male and female. So yeah, Vince goes on to say the Dark Eye has so many details. They have purity grades for alchemical products. Purity is an issue. And different symbols for different methods of using it. The six most common are dissolve, precipitation, distilling. I forgot about distilling. Freeze, heating, and mixing. I found a list of ingredients for the Dark Eye. They have 349 different ones. Yeah, you might want to narrow that down. Yeah. Ogre's like, got Minotaur? Gotta have the milk mustache. That's not milk. Omen says they happen to be sexy buff women. Well, there is that too. Yeah, I hear you, Omen. Mm-mm-mm. Yep. It's like, ooh, that's some bull. but you get my point, right? Like, there's more. You can find compounds in more than just, I don't know, liquids from trees or something from the ground. Everything doesn't need to be a potion of sorts. For yep, Vince, like female Minotaur bikinis. Oh man, there is also the idea of certain things being a certain way. Like, for example, the glands of certain living creatures go back to that eye of Newt, or maybe there's a certain beetle that has a poisonous sting, but if you just carve out the glands inside of it, it can do a thing. Remember the old, if you're old enough, you remember fire beetles in classic Dungeons and Dragons, and it was a creature specifically detailed that if you take the glands, if you kill a fire beetle and take its glands, it casts light so that you can continue in through the dungeon. And for those, there's a current game called Five Torches Deep. If you remember back in the day, torches only burned for a certain amount of time, and it was very important during resource management to have enough torches and enough lanterns to be able to see in the dark down in the deep dungeons. And this is old school, right? But Alex, he said, "What? No bikini wax? All fur." Yeah. Ricker says, "Quote, look, I know you want to head out to kill that lich that is tormenting the countryside, but I think we should go to the swamp and find some giant toads so I can get a gland that lets me brew this weird potion." I know you're being sarcastic there, Ricker, but not the problem. Okay. The problem with the PC that has to do the side quest is don't make it a side quest, make it the quest, right? Yeah, Ricker says, yeah, that is legit though. That thing happens. Yeah, with the PC that goes off on their own. It's like, well, we don't want to kill the you put it as a game master, you're like, but I put the big bad guy in front of you. Like, I literally hung a hook for the quest, and the PC's like, no, I want to go collect some materials. But that's where you take alchemy and you make that the quest. The quest is the lich has the materials that you need, right? The quest is searching for the materials you want and all the dangerous things that are involved between you getting it. Whether the danger is urban, meaning buying, cheating, stealing, dealing, compromising, whatever, to get the specific things you need down in the dark alley, dealing with the dangerous people who also want to steal it from you. And remember, I understand player characters love to be special snowflakes, and I want to be the only alchemist that exists in the world, right? But if you have an alchemical economy, there will be other people who want to take it from you. The minute you make a deal to acquire some alchemical compound, somebody else knows about it. A, from the person you got it from, and B, from the rumors and the people, the information that's spread. And if someone knows you're an alchemist, then they automatically know that you have the skills, that you might be dangerous, that you might be breaking some laws, that you might be the person that other people want to go after, so they don't have to go through the hard process of going to collect those things in the first place, right? It's not a matter of a single player character going off on their own to do a thing. It is turning the adventure into the thing. Hey, player character wants to ignore the lich and go off and find alchemical compounds. Great. Lich sends agents after those people, knowing that there's this alchemist or apothecary or herbalist doing the thing, right? Like, yeah, the lich is like, no, I'm going to send my agents to make sure nobody gets anything that can, I don't know, can destroy my phylactery or something that can only be dissolved with a certain kind of alchemical compound that can destroy my adamantined phylactery in a box or something, right? Yep. Ogre's like, I remember fire beetles from yesterday. Oh man, Vince puts out a list. So I'll be right there. Ricker says, and that is the problem with alchemists in RPGs. If you want the fantasy of the brewing, but if the lich has the quests that you need, you are also removing the fantasy of collecting all the herbs and ingredients from the monster. No, not unless. See, I think you're trying to find a problem, right? Which is fine, because then you want to confront those things. It's not player character and lich and you're done. It's all the things that happen in between. So maybe these, I don't know, fire beetles are out there and both the player characters and the bad guy both want them. So now you have this triangle of of encounter, right? The PCs want the thing, bad guy wants the thing, boom, instant conflict. Player characters get the thing, great. Bad guy wants to take it from them. Bad guy takes the thing, great. PCs want it from bad guy. It's this constant circle of conflict that could happen. PCs ignore entire plot of bad guy to go after other thing. Great, bad guy wants to know what PCs are doing. Other agents want to know what, people are nosy. Like, what are you doing and where are you going? Why are you after it? And there are all other kinds of people who might want the thing. And then, of course, the rarity of it and where it's at and who has it and who knows where it's at. And let's go to the guy that's going to tell me where I can get the thing for my character. Great. That guy goes and sells that information to someone else. Or that guy is murdered for that information, right? So on and so forth. Vince says, some highlights from the Dark Eye ingredients list. All right, here we go. Dwarf beard hair, beaver testicles. What the hell? Chimera or chimera urine. I like chimera. Fresh raspberries. Okay. Bunny ears. That's pretty nasty. Wood splintered from a coffin. I like that specificity, right? It's not just wood or wood splinters. It's wood splinters from a coffin. Mouse milk. I don't know how you get that. Eyes of an executed murderer. I love that stuff. Afterbirth. Oh, like the placenta and stuff. Ooh. Horse sweat. I don't know how you're going to get horse sweat. Intoxicating cucumber. Okay, I guess soaked in alcohol. Ash made out of the skin of a black snake, and vanilla, and 14 different kinds of water. Oh man. Alex adds to the stagnant, distilled, crystal, stream, and many I can't think of at the moment. Yeah, I mean, and see, that's the other thing. The circumstances are another element you could throw into gathering something. So again, right, it's not just, oh, I need water for my alchemical thing. Great. No, maybe like you're saying, stagnant water, distilled water, frozen water, maybe water from a particular, like I said, altitude, or water from a specific region, or and of course, when we talk about alchemy, it doesn't necessarily need to be scientific. I'm going back to the eye of an executed murderer or wood splinters from a coffin, right? It could be the flowers that are, you can only pick a certain frond or petals from, or nectar from a flower on a battlefield where 1,000 or more people have died, right? So it's not just the specific flower, but the circumstances that lead to it, in which case there could be some big bads that are trying to create the circumstances that lead to the thing to get the thing from it, right? Yeah, I'm going to have 1,000 people die on a battlefield just so I can grow some flowers on it. Oh man, Ricker says, my point is that players 1 to 3 wants to slay the Lich, and player 4 wants to feel like they are an alchemist, or they're engaged in their alchemy. I agree. If again, session 0, you guys haven't talked about it, or that player isn't on board, right? It doesn't matter that the character's playing an alchemist. It matters that the player is diverging attention away from the main focus of the game. And it doesn't matter that you're playing an alchemist. You could play anything. My paladin must atone for themselves. I'm going to go off on my own. My character's playing a cleric, and I'm going to go meditate or pray or something, all off on my own, right? My character's a warlock, and I'm going to go off on my own and do the thing. Any player character can come up with a here is the excuse. I'm separating from the party and diverging away from the main focus of the game. An alchemist is just a good excuse to do it, right? I mean, and there's some players that want to take that excuse, but that behavior is only either A, the person is someone that either wants to steal the spotlight, B, they've decided to play a different game than the one that everyone is like, we're going to kill the Lich, and they're like, that's not the game I want to play, right? Or the game master is not, again, involving making it personal. Make it personal. Just like I'm a warrior and I want to kill the thing because it killed my family. Okay, you make it personal, right? I'm an alchemist. Great. All your alchemy stuff is pointing towards the lich, and then you should be done with it. So reframing and recontextualizing your character to be involved is the job of the player. It's not the job of the game master to redirect the wandering eye of some player character, some player who's like off on their own, which that can be another thing too. Vince lists the 14 kinds of water. I'm gonna get to that in a minute there, Vince. Rickard says, think about how a game would run if you required your players to manually gather all of their spell components. But that isn't the fantasy of being spellcaster, but it is very much tied into the fantasy of alchemy. Well, the thing is that all editions of Dungeons and Dragons have always had alchemy in it. Every wizard and every spell has spell components. We at the table decide how important it is or how hand wavy it is for you to have those components in the first place, right? So technically it's already been there. We just haven't named it that. How much bat guano are player characters walking around with to cast that fireball? Or has anyone even bothered to use that, right? That 100 gold piece gemstone or pearl or whatever, are we including that, or are we just hand waving it away? Are you using your verbal and somatic components as well? So we've already incorporated that into the game or ignored it. It's just a matter of turning the dial, the degrees at which you want to use it. Vince's 14 kinds of water: stagnant, distilled from rainwater in the sun, ice water from a specific ocean, okay, running water, made from dew, okay, dew, yep, ocean water from at least 100 steps deep, water from a spring, rainwater, salt water, stalactite water. The water dripping from a stalactite water. Still forest sea. Fresh water from an undersea source, like an aquifer. Water from fresh snow, and sugar water. Okay, I'm liking that. Rickard says, fantasy of a fighter, swing weapon in battle, easy. Caster's fantasy, being able to find spells. Alchemist, I think you're trying to separate some, or again, I think you're focusing on the negative parts of that. Like wizard, I cast spell. Okay, great. Are we going to focus on the spell components you need to cast your spells? Then we've all agreed to it, right? Same thing with alchemist. Same thing with a warrior, right? Are you incorporating weapon decreasing? Your weapons breaking, your armor breaking down. If not, then we're just going to hand wave it. Same thing with the alchemist. It's just a word. I think we give too much power to the words we use than the actual use of them. So, for example, in a hag, the stat block of a hag has nothing to do with creating concoctions. But as a story element, we can do that. We can say that a hag out there in the swamp is creating special concoctions that she sells to the populace, but she doesn't just sell them for gold. She sells them for promises. Promise of a firstborn, promise of a service that you will regret later, promise of an eye or a limb, or a promise of 2 pounds of flesh or something like that, right? And then the PCs get involved in that thing. Are they encountering? Is the alchemist using their knowledge of the enemies they're fighting? Is that troll a troll, or is that troll a human being that was transformed because they didn't keep their promise to the old hag? And so the story moves along that fact. So yeah, you can argue the point of something being bad, but that's if you say it's bad. The point is that alchemy is just one facet, and I think alchemy becomes its own story. If you want more social interaction, then the alchemist talking with others in the game world that use certain specific alchemical compounds and is able to converse um, on a level like, for example, maybe the alchemist can hand over a specific potion, or they're demanding to hand over a specific potion or recipe or something to allow 5 captured children by the hag to let them go. And of course, the hag is surrounded by her individuals that she's transformed that have been addicted to her specific, manifestations of her own herbalistic concoctions and things like that. In other words, these are just words. These are just descriptors, and then just reskinning them, reflavoring them, and recontextualizing it. I don't think there's a problem with it. Player wants to go off on their own, great. Put the adventure right in front of the player. If the player wants to go off on their own and they're with 4 other individuals that they're playing the game, then you have a social problem. Tesla says alchemical symbols, the 3 primes, mind, body, and soul, the 4 basic elements, air, earth, fire, and water, the 7 planetary metals, lead, tin, iron, gold, copper, mercury, and silver. There are 11 mundane elements, antimony, arsenic, bismuth, boron, lithium, magnesium, phosphorus, platinum, potassium, sulfur, zinc. So see, all of these, 7 alchemical compounds, 12 alchemical processes, 5 units, hours, dram, ounce, scruple, pound. Yeah, where is that from? 12 alchemical processes, calcination, congelation, fixation, distillation, digestion, distillation, sublimation, separation, coercion, fermentation or putrefaction, multiplication, and projection. I'm liking that. Vince puts that in. Wow, so many shuns, right? I'm thinking the same thing. I'm thinking the exact same thing, but I'm liking it a lot. I'm liking it very much, very much. And remember, you guys know I'm all about tension, right? So if the alchemist, let's say the MacGuffin is that a terrible thing is happening, and it takes 3 rounds for someone to successfully apply a specific compound or processes or something to make a thing not happen, right? Then the player character who's the alchemist, instead of just throwing explosive stuff, maybe it's necessary for them to spend 3 rounds to stop a thing, while the warrior person swinging the sword keeps the bad things away from the alchemist, right? It's the version of the wizard reading the ritual while everyone protects the wizard so that you can close the portal. Maybe there is, I don't know, Greek fire or something spreading through the city, and there's no way to put it out. But the alchemist is like, I've got a special powder that can do the thing, but I have to spread it around, and the enemy doesn't want you to stop them from doing the thing, right? If you have enemies that are using specific compounds, or they have them in storage, or they're being transferred across state lines or something, then you automatically have something in the background that is its own problem, right? Bad guys have wagons filled with barrels of something. What happens when those barrels open up? Maybe that causes more harm than a little bit, especially if those barrels are filled with oozes and jellies and what's some other things? Oozes, jellies, puddings, gelatinous materials, right? Might not want to break open all those barrels, or maybe you do. Yep. Rico says, okay, going back up, and I would argue, that it isn't the player, but the game designer's responsibility to allow the player to fulfill the fantasy of a specific archetype. But are you an alchemist, or as you are grandeur? Not really following you on that. No, I think it's our responsibility. The game, Dungeons and Dragons already has spell components for wizards. how many people use them, though? How many people really use every spell component? It's up to us, right? They give you the tools. It's just up to us. No different from an alchemist than anybody else. I want to play a warlock. How often does your warlock patron come into effect? That's up to us, right? It's up to us. The Archmage Alchemist is very defined, not just a word, but it's an archetype. And as for focusing on the problems, only after you look at the problems you can find the solutions, right? And that's what I'm saying. Like, if you first you find the problems in it, right? The player character wants to wander off on their own, and then you confront them, like, okay, listen, PC, I know what you want to do, but in the context of this thing, I'm going to allow you to be the thing that you want as long as you participate in the game, right? There's a lot of reasons why player characters should never hang out together, but we accept the fact that they're traveling together for a particular reason. So then we come up with that reason, right? Player character goes along and says, well, my lab is back home. Why would I travel on the road with you? Well, Game Master says, well, the reason is because everything that you need is in a straight line towards the evil lich or something. Great. Okay, now I'm going to go along. Rika goes on to say, so you just reskin it as a wizard that throws potions, concoctions, doesn't solve the problem with the alchemist fantasy as just one component to it, but in actuality you're just playing a caster. Well, we already talked about that. You are playing a caster, right? The fantasy of play isn't any different from playing the wizard. Yeah, it's the idea of we everything is always reskinned and reflavored, right? I want to play a classic wizard with a pointy hat and a spell book. Okay. Somebody else says, I want to play a shaman or a witch doctor that uses skins and throws bones. Sure, you might be reskinning it, and maybe the player's like, well, I want to be I read up on what witch doctors do and voodooism, and I really want to be part of that. And then everyone agrees or disagrees. Okay, how much of this do we want to incorporate in the game? So it's just like anything. Yep, Alex is like, yes, casting the bottle at someone's head. Yeah. Sure, I think because many of the games kind of devolve into the combat portion of the game, the alchemist in battle is, of course, going to be throwing, spilling, pouring, whatever concoctions into the battlefield. But as you guys know, I'm a self-appointed third pillar-ist. The idea that the alchemist should be able to do other things other than just causing sabotage and destruction, I think is a prime example of maybe not quite embracing everything that an alchemist is. An example would be using a chemical to find the tracks that someone left, or using a chemical to let's think of our police procedural television shows, right? Our CSI shows, crime investigation shows. Many of them use tons of alchemical processes to discover information, whether it's fingerprints or something written on a piece of paper or blood splatter and those kind of things. And I think taking that and expanding on it even further. So individual robs the noble's coffers or something. We're going to execute the criminal. Alchemist is like, no, I think they were mind controlled. Well, you can't prove that. Well, actually, yes, I can, because if they breathe in, I'm going to make a little stew, or I have essence of something, and if they breathe it in, the veins in their skin turn purple or something, and I can prove that this person was mind controlled, or they drank something that hypnotized them, and I know exactly who it was that created the thing, or whatever. Again, I'm pulling this out of off the top of my head. I'm pulling it out of my ass, really. But my point is that the use of the alchemist, much like every other character class, if you want to engage in things other than pure combat, having their abilities expand out into other parts of the game world I think is pretty paramount. For example, the fighter that understands what forensics is, the wizard that can read not just what spell was cast in the past that burned the green fire, but who cast it and where they would be located and what faction they belong to, et cetera, et cetera. The alchemist could be the one that knows what kinds of poisons were used to kill someone, what kind of residue is left behind by a particular kind of creature, which wizard's experiment created the dangerous creatures that are in the dark woods in the first place, the concoctions to allow us to go through the dark woods without being accosted by the giant beetles that are out here in the first place, those kind of things, right? So oh man, Tesla puts in a list of water 35 liters, carbon 20 kilograms, ammonia 40 liters, lime 1.5 kilograms, and goes on and says those are the elements to make an average adult human body. You can buy these elemental ingredients at the market with the pocket money of a child. Humans are made so cheaply. Oh man, sulfur, 100 grams of sulfur, 80 grams fluorine, 7.5 grams of iron, 3 grams of silicon, and 15 other elements. That's awesome. That's awesome to build a person, get all the elements separate, like phosphorus and salt. Is that neater? Sure that's not nickel? But anyway, it doesn't matter. And then building people, I could see that. I could see someone making a mistake and getting all the elements together after distilling a human body and then try to make their own army or something. Yep, Alex. Like Alex said, all you need now you need to cast life on all those ingredients and make sure you got them in the right percentages. Otherwise, if you make you mix it wrong, oh, neater. There it is. Chiefly British, or nitre, is the mineral form of potassium nitrate. Oh, okay. Also known as saltpeter. Ooh. This is from Full Metal Alchemist. I did not know that. Oh, I did not know that. Tesla says the real list is water. It's water, carbon, ammonia, lime, saltpeter, phosphorus, salt, sulfur, sodium bicarbonate, and trace amounts of 14 other elements. The transport, talking about phosphorus, it just made me think of burning phosphorus. The not only gathering the elements, but keeping them in a stable location and transporting them stably is another problem in and of itself, which especially in an urban environment could have its own issues, especially with player characters running around with highly volatile chemicals on them if they are bothering to carry them around. And I could imagine there being anti-alchemical alchemists whose only job is to make sure that alchemy that is used either illegally or indiscriminately or negligently is doesn't spread. So I could imagine like an alchemist enforcer of sorts to stop the spread of the Greek fire, to stop the spread of the mutant, the mutation after people are drinking something that they're addicted to. Vince says in Full Metal Alchemist, the alchemists are actually something like chemist mages that can change the shape and mixture of elements around them by using their abilities. And again, that depends on how you want to define alchemy, especially in a fantasy world where when you're talking fantasy and imagination, the two, in science, using the eyeball of a convicted murderer, like that's not science, but that is fantasy alchemy. Ricker goes on to say that the problem with everyone should go along is that you are not solving the problem of gathering ingredients and brewing potions, is ignoring it and moving along. I agree with you on that one. To clarify, you are solving the problem of this player wants to go and do X while the rest of the party wants to do Y. But you are not solving the how can we make X fun for the whole group so it can be built into the game and not and not hand waves. That comes back around to the source of like, hey, my alchemist needs to gather these ingredients. Great. Well, those ingredients are dangerous to gather, so we need a fighter. Those ingredients are dangerous to. It's dangerous exploration wise to get it. Great. So we need a rogue or a ranger to climb, jump, scale, cross, or whatever to get to that certain location. It's very difficult to find the thing. We need someone who can magically detect where the thing is. Great. We have a druid or something. Oh, there's a cleric. These materials have a religious bias to it, and we need someone who knows, who is dedicated to a particular religion or knows about religion, because the people in this community don't want you gathering these particular materials, because to them it is something holy, but to us it is something that we can use for our own particular thing. I mean, how the wizard that wants to use the holy water for their own experiments, the religious people might not want you using that for your own ill-gotten gains, right? So yes, you could like I said, you can create an entire economy built around alchemy, involving every character class involved in that economy. The great warriors that go out there to slay the great beasts because the beasts have a certain gland that needs to be harvested for a certain thing, right? The warlock patron that wants the warlocks to harness or gather or hold for themselves certain things because they know that the alchemists need them for their own particular abilities and stuff. So yeah. Tesla says, I watched a documentary last night, part of which was about those chemistry sets in the 50s. There were no safety precautions. Kids were routinely injured from explosions, fires, and chemical burns. Ow. Vince puts in the link to 2 ways to make green fire. He goes to say, I just learned that in the reality show Kids Nation, they never supervised the kids while cooking or cleaning. They got sued because kids got into hospitals because they cleaned their glasses with bleach and later drank from them. Ooh, shit. Ooh. Yeah, no. Alex, for some reason, I was thinking that you get green flame if you from lighting your farts. Maybe depends on what you ate. Ricker says, "What? You don't want a vial of concentrated unstable dragon's fire in your city?" Yeah, exactly, right. So yeah, alchemy, I love it. I think we are thinking about the problems that alchemy creates, which I think is great, because that means there's no shortage of stories, right? If it's very simple, I draw my sword and kill the thing, and then it draws its claws or bites me and tries to kill me. It's pretty simple. Not that you can't create stories from that, but I think alchemy itself becomes its own culture. It becomes its own economy. It becomes the thing that moves factions, and so I love it. Deadman says, lighting your farts makes blue flame. Yes, from the methane gases or something like that, which I suppose if there's blue flame blowing out of the ground, that could be some kind of creature who has, maybe it's a purple worm blowing out some gas or something. Jimmy Tells All for Kid Nation exclusive. Ooh. Yeah. But anyway, guys, tomorrow, Discord Tuesday, we kind of talk about mechanics. Maybe we'll get into the more mechanical parts of how do we track all these elements that the PCs are gathering, and resources. How do we reconcile the time it would take someone to mix these things together versus, I don't know, adventuring. Of course, we have World Building Wednesday, which we pretty much did that today, but we're going to do World Building Wednesday, where alchemy is the thing that creates the world, because that's what we do on World Building Wednesday. And of course, we have Third Pillar Thursday. That's going to be my favorite, about talking about the environment. And then, of course, we have Future Friday. Maybe or maybe not might talk about Alchemy in Future Friday, but whatever. But anyway, guys, everybody have a great one. Have a great holiday if you're here in the States. Have fun. Have great Memorial Day as well. Everyone have a great one. I'll see you later. Bye. Thank you for watching. Of course, I'm trying to grab the video up here. So anyway, see ya.